All right, well, welcome back, everybody. We have a little bit of a different video for you today.
Yeah.
Typically, you see us individually talk about instruction kind of separately. I've only done a couple of them. We have a how to fix the slice and some other little things. You have a tendency to do more of the kind of TPI workout side of it, which if you want to see more about the TPI stuff, I don't adhere to it. But it's actually great information. He's got a bunch of short little ones that we've done.
Yes, yeah, they'll all be, by the time you see this, they should be out, or at least a few of them are out.
Yeah, so absolutely check those out. But you know, one thing that both of us are super passionate about is advancing people's abilities in their golf games.
Yeah, let's just get better.
It's what we both got into the industry kind of around first. I was a teacher before I managed clubs, before I owned a company and all this stuff, and now I've gotten back to teaching.
Yep.
You've kind of lived there most of your life because you're a
coaching.
former, coach at the high school level.
Yep.
And now obviously, in the golf swing. So, in your opinion, what's one of the biggest things people could do to kind of maintain their swing and their playing and all that stuff?
Yeah, so, it's getting into the TPI stuff and that kind of deals, but, whenever you get set up and you get that hip hinge and that stuff and you kind of get a spine angle set, like I talk a whole bunch about spine angle. You get a spine angle, that spine angle gets set.
Right.
And then our golf swing is basically rotating and turning around that spine angle.
Yep.
So, something I think is pretty important is that right-handed golfer, or however you want to think about it, but your lead shoulder, keeping that lead shoulder down in the backswing, not letting it get lateral
all
or
over
high
the place,
or flat,
really,
or just kind of going everywhere.
Yeah, and a great drill you can do for that, Aaron's already kind of doing, is take your golf club and put it right against your chest there and hold it. And then as Aaron turns here, what you'll see is what he's doing is he's pointing that club back at the ground. Versus, a lot of times we see people come in and as they turn, they have a tendency to stand upright a little bit. Now you can see how much higher that is versus keeping that down to where it should be. Granted, there's probably a little more hip flexion there than normal, but
Side bend.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
That won't mess your already screwed up back up anymore.
Yeah.
So like Aaron's been doing here is we've been kind of showing you what shoulder tilt does, but this is a great little drill. If you just take this away, what are you visually trying to do there with the grip, Aaron, as
far as what I'm kind of looking at, if this is my golf ball and I'm set up to it. So as I set up right here, I cross this, you can even have a hand over here or whatever, but when I come back, I'm looking at a spot, I kind of think about a foot outside the golf ball.
Right.
And it can be even a little bit in front of the golf ball, but that spot, just looking down the shaft off the grip, it looks like, to me, it's about a foot, maybe a little bit more, but about a foot away from that ball. You can clearly, if I come back here and I turn flat, I can clearly see it. This thing's pointed way over there,
right.
6, 7, 8 feet away from it. Yeah, that's kind of my visualization of, let's find a spot right there. And heck, who's to say you don't just set up on the range and you have not a golf ball, you have kind of like your little station where you practice at, and you stick a tee in the ground and then stick another tee about a foot or two away from it, set up to the first tee, and then turn and get your club pointed at the second tee. Just something to visually look at.
Well, and that same thing too is on the follow through, you can do something similar as well. Now, obviously in the follow through, you're going to move through quite a bit more. But when you get back to kind of when your shoulders are more square to target, again, you're going to follow through. That inertia is going to pull you. But it's that same idea. So if you can repeat that motion with your shoulders over and over and over and keep hitting those spots. So Aaron's in spot 1, spot 2, spot 3. And now, again, you're using the other side of the golf club here, so it's a little bit different.
Yeah, if you have...
I was going to say a longer club or a tour stick.
Yeah, you got an alignment stick. I don't have one in there, but...
a really expensive shaft.
It's just a really, really good shaft. So, back to there.
Yep.
Then here, and there.
Back to there. You're kind of pointing in the same spot on all, two of those, really.
Yeah, your shoulders are trading places.
Right.
If you're keeping that spine angle, hips back, through all of it. The other thing that you see whenever people lose that shoulder movement is, if we're looking at my hips are back here. Whenever I go flat shoulder, my hips tend to come in this direction. And
almost like you're trying to sit down.
Yes, and you really see it with people that try to swing real hard at it and they don't have very good stability, all that stuff, and they start to come into it and then there the hips go and there the shoulders go.
Well, now you're no longer in an athletic motion.
No, you're just
so now you're just kind of standing there like a lump on a log.
Squatted there doing nothing.
And then typically when you do that, pew,
yeah.
or flippy and left. It depends on what your reaction to it all is.
Another kind of thought with the, we're looking for side bend. I had a girl in the other day that we were having like a very difficult time figuring out how to, get into this side bend position
without being tall and standing up and
all kinds of
people can do it easily, but the easy way to do it is to cheat and to just kind of stand there and like, look, I did it. Like, well, you're not. Your shoulders are parallel to the ground. That's not.
Especially whenever people are looking for a position in their backswing.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, here we go. I'm going to check. Get it back to there. That's a pretty good spot right there.
And if you noticed,
well, as soon as I did that,
in this camera angle, you'll be able to see when he does that.
You take it back here, and you're like,
oh, I look good, right, and then automatically that comes up, and that's it drives me when people sit there and we're teaching. And I'm sure this happens to you. And I go, when you get to the top, I want you to feel a pause and then fire everything back down the way like this, and then they stand up like
straight out of it. Let's start back over again.
Yeah, that's when you're talking about what we're talking about. It's a hard thing to repeat and drill and work on because typically it tightens your lower back.
Yep.
Because if you're not doing it the right way, it's probably going to be a little stiff going into it. But then on second, there's really no good way of checking it and looking at it yourself unless you happen to be in front of a mirror or something.
You have to.
But even then, people have a tendency to stand up.
Yeah, you come
the
out
second
of posture.
You stop that drill in your backswing and stand up, you've screwed the drill up.
It's completely done.
So I was going to say, obviously pointing and all those things are important, but the second most important thing is stay in the shot.
Stay in posture. Yep.
And swing all the way through, and then when you're done with your follow through, then you can stand up. If you really want to see what it looks like, get a camera, get your phone, set it up behind you, set it up somewhere where you can see it.
Running through your hip.
Yep. And just hit record, do it a couple times, go back and look at the footage. I typically when I teach, I almost always teach with a camera. And the reason being, if not two, one down line, one face on, because I don't want that player to pause or stop. I would much rather pause the video, talk about it, and then have a feeling conversation and put him in that position.
Yeah.
And then have him drill through it all the way through.
And letting that player, it's very easy for the instructor to look and see and say, hey, you did this, but the player does not feel that. And if you can't feel it, then you 100% do not believe that it's happening.
Right.
And then you throw it in a video on there and play it back, and they're like, oh, okay. Yeah, so I did do that, but we're not lying to you.
Yeah.
Like you really did do that. But yeah, side bend too, if you're having a difficulty getting into it, if you stand straight up and down, kind of get that, sorry for banging into that mic, get this across your chest, turn.
Yep.
And then tip your shoulder down.
Keeping in mind your lower body needs to adjust as well.
Yeah, we can't just go like this and stay up.
You have the worst back in America.
Hips back.
Yep.
And then if you kind of notice too, from that away.
Yep.
Hey.
That's a lot more square to your shoulders than it was.
Yeah, my hips are down. My hips are relatively on the same spot. Shoulder tilt. Very, very important.
So when your shoulder's high or you're flat on the back of your swing, typically what happens on your downswing?
So, if we see flat shoulder and stuff here, lots of time we see club going across or whatever, but then transitioning into that downswing, if I'm over here, clearly I'm not going to be able to hit a golf ball like that. The club's going to have to go back down. So what's going to happen? The club's going to go down, and now I'm coming.
You're starting with your upper body first, typically because it's stuck. Yes. So if something feels stuck, if you feel resistance on something, your normal first reaction isn't going to be to stop, slow down, and assess. It's stuck. Let's push harder.
Yeah.
So if your upper body's stuck and your lower body's not, typically the shoulder or hands or whatever feels stuck to you starts first.
It's going to take off first.
When your upper body starts first, you are out of position.
Yes, yes.
Which typically means, which again, one of the most common misses in golf is what? Over the top.
Over the top.
And that's exactly what can cause it. So if you think about the shoulder turn in trying to help fix that over the top move, there's a lot of that goes hand in hand. I mean, there's more to it than just that, but that's a pretty big component of it.
Get you into a better position to go ahead and release the club from the inside, as opposed to being, like we're saying, come here, oh, everything looks good, come up there, and then now I'm going back down to the golf club, and there my hand goes.
And if you notice where that tip of that shaft was, it was here, then here, now, and then it dove again. So instead of it being straight back, straight through, like if there was a laser pointed through it, on that line. Kind of, Aaron said when he liked the point, it was about right out in here. Hypothetically, if there was lasers on both ends of that, you see that laser come here and then continue off from the other side to there and then go the other direction, and it'd all be in this nice straight line.
Yeah,
in a perfect world.
Yeah.
A little bit of arching at the back because you're obviously, it's a rotational thing and turning, but with that, it would have looked like a Picasso.
Yeah, there would have been
modern art. It was just
swirls
squigglies everywhere. So cool. Awesome, guys. Give that a try. Let us know how it goes. You know, this is something new. We've both done these types of videos individually on our channels, probably not as much as we should. But we kind of had this idea to maybe do a little bit of
throw them together, for sure.
instruction. You get a little bit different take. Every instructor, we might be teaching something similar, but how we say things is always a little bit different. I teach differently than Aaron. Aaron teaches differently than me.
But he goes about things a little bit different, yeah, for sure.
Right, and that both ways are right. Both ways are also probably wrong sometimes. A good instructor will admit that they're not right all the time.
Yeah.
I'll tell my students first thing, like, hey, just so you know, like, this is an experiment. We're trying something, and occasionally, not all the time.
Yeah.
Some things work every time. Some things don't.
Yeah.
So if you guys want to see more instructional stuff with the both of us, let us know.
Yeah, and any questions that you have, something that you're struggling with, put it down there.
And more importantly, this information is completely free. All we ask in return is that you hit that little subscribe button and that like button. That helps get these videos out to more and more people, whether it's through the 1611 channel or the Maverick Performance Golf channel. So,
yeah. Thank you all for checking in.
See you in the next one.